No, I don't do any like crazy intros or anything. We just start talking and then I edit it later if I want to like do some kind of like hard open or something like that, but usually I don't. Um, so you and I have talked, but I was on your channel and
Yeah.
I might ask questions that already talked about in that podcast, but I feel like a lot of the stuff I was asking you about how because like you grew a pretty big audience on Facebook, wasn't that right? And
Yeah, it's up to about 178,000 on one page.
yeah,
And
that's I would say
yeah,
that's pretty big.
yeah.
Yeah, so we'll get into that, but I usually how I start all this off is just like fill me in on wherever you want to start your career in whatever you want to call your form of entertainment and uh and then where you're at now and what kind of projects you going on and I'll just like interject more often than I should, but as I have questions along the way.
Yeah, that's fine. Feel free to interject whenever. It's all good.
All right, take it.
Okay, so I'm Marcel the Loser. I've been a cartoonist. Basically, I've been making comics since I was about 7 years old. That's going on, I guess, if you do the math, about 22 years at this point. I've always had a love for storytelling and mostly in comic format. So on and off, I was making comics, like I said, from about age of 7, and then I really started going for it professionally after I left high school and college. So about like around like age of 20, and yeah, about so I guess for about the past 15 years. I've been trying to find the best way to be an indie comic creator, and by best, I mean the most lucrative way to be an indie comic creator. Just because I started off, basically following the industry blueprint, so to speak. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I'll do a comic, and then I'll try and get in comic book stores, and then I'll sell it there. And it's like, okay, I accomplished that. Like the local comic book stores around my way over here in Marietta, Georgia, they're pretty cool. So it's like it's nothing to get a book into a comic book store, is I think many creators find out pretty fast. It's about it's about making that process scalable, and like the way I was doing it is like, okay, yeah, this isn't gonna work. So I really just went into this large phase of just trying to figure out the best way to scale as an indie one man machine, so to speak. And yeah, that's brought me to where I am today, where I've got my Facebook page for Marcel Comics. And I've got a Dragon Ball page as well, Dragon Ball fan page. That's up to about 2,000 or 61,000 followers at this point. Creating content for these audiences, and then making my own comics that are aligned with those audiences, and then advertising them to those audiences. And that's been pretty well so far. Facebook has given me a lot of opportunities through their new content monetization program. And that's really been uh, the end goal, lucrative.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, it's basically, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically just like a ad share, ad revenue program for content on Facebook, but it doesn't have to just be videos. It can be still images like a comic, and you get paid every time someone likes it, comments on your post, shares your post, even click it to like zoom in and stuff. And if you're what you call it, if you're crafty, if you're suave enough, you will usually put your comics not in one square. You'll put it in a long format so that it gets cropped and people have to click it in order to see it. That way, it's you're getting paid just off of people looking at it. They don't
Ah,
even have to
genius.
like it. You get paid off of just them viewing it. So basically just, yeah, I've been doing that, leveraging existing content from the internet with these like sort of fan pages, and then doing what I can to funnel those people into my stuff. And yeah, like I said, it's going pretty well so far. I've started figuring out something a bit more steady for Patreon signups. And yeah, I've just been rocking with that. Going pretty strong these past few months. And yeah, it's looking good. The future is bright for Marcel Comics.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so. Before I kind of want to dive into the weeds of like your whole like strategy without you giving away all your secrets. But before I jump into that, like, what are the, I guess, quote unquote, like final products that you're funneling the audience to? Like, are they actual physical comics, or are you like sending people digital PDFs, or like what's the like whenever you capture the audience on Facebook? I know that you like that in itself is its own form of like revenue or really content sharing. But do you have like a final thing where like when you finally like what are you leading people to ultimately? Like what is your like final end product or whatever?
So I have to say it's digital content. I guess to simplify it, digital content. Usually just my comic books and content around my comic books, such as like art, art created around the universe of the comic. And yeah, that's about it. Right now, I'm really just not looking to do physical books as much. Like again, it becomes the scalability and like the sustainability, because I could do a Kickstarter for a physical book, of course. But then you do that Kickstarter and it's okay, it's that one spike, and then maybe you put it on Amazon and you have to constantly keep advertising it. And like that, it clearly that works for some people to do Kickstarter, right? And very successful Kickstarters out there. But for me personally, I'm just not super gassed on the idea of creating all this what's the word, ancillary merchandise
Yeah, yeah.
for my comics, to where it's like, okay, yeah, you're making the books, you're making the shirts, you're making the buttons, you're making the figures, and then you're all gonna ship it. I'm like, I don't really want to get too attached, like, because I think for me personally, and I think for a lot of creators, at the end of the day, you just want to create comics and get paid for it.
For sure.
And it's like I didn't really sign up to be this whole like just product machine. If anything, I'm signing up to be a content machine. So something that's more aligned with that is my Patreon membership, or some type of subscription where I'm able to just be a content machine and just put out digital content. And I don't have to worry about the, shipping and all that stuff. Even though I did find out what I think is a good avenue for like handling Kickstarter shipping, basically just listing the book on Amazon, and then have them printed and ship it for me. It's a lot easier. You don't have to pre-order all these books and then have leftover books and stuff like that. Just send it straight through Amazon. So that, I think that would have been a good move for me, but still, it's not something I'm looking to scale to
No,
infinity
yeah.
or whatever, because it's just, I don't want to be responsible for sending all this kinds of product to all these kinds of people. And if you're really going to do it like how some of the big boys do it on Kickstarter every month, I'm not about to run a campaign every month. It's just way easier to have a subscription service and do the ad share. It's just way more approachable for me.
Yeah, that makes 100% sense. I mean, especially if it's like working as well as it is for you. It'd be one thing if you just like tried it out and it like wasn't working. It's like, okay, well then I'll try the Kickstarter thing. But when you have a machine that's profitable and functions and it's telling your stories, there's no reason to try to like basically start another business of creating physical products if your main thing is digital content. I guess I'm unfamiliar with like what is the main stories that you're telling? Do you have multiple series? Sorry about that. Is it one uh like is it one series that you're is the main story that you're telling on these the platforms, or do you have multiple titles in a sense that you're telling? Like how many stories do you have going on? And is it kind of like an ongoing webcomic kind of thing, or that is told like one, maybe like a few panels at a time, or is it kind of like what does the actual end result look like when your readers are reading it?
So it's kind of a mix of all that, which is put me through this kind of uh I guess it was a difficult thing trying to brand it for a second there. With the old argument between comics and manga, people will say it's easier to get into manga because everything is. I have a manga right here. Everything is very easily numbered and stuff like that, right? So I make basically crossover comics a lot that takes characters from other stories and puts them all in the same world. And it's called this story. If you want to consider the overall story, it's called Mugen, right? It's based off of the PC game. So there's an overarching narrative that is Mugen, right? That
Okay,
will put into volumes. It's like, okay, Mugen Volume 1, Mugen Volume 2, Mugen Volume 3, right? Now, within Mugen, there are actual just ongoing stories. It's basically like the MCU. There's an Iron Man 1, there's an Iron Man 2, there's an Iron Man 3, right? But it's all a part of this long MCU story. So basically it's like that. And again, that can be difficult to brand as the people at Disney learned, for people who are just looking to approach a story and not sure where to start, right? So my it's a lot more difficult in physical format, I think, when you're only able to look at one book in isolation. I think when you're approaching it on a website, it's a lot more simpler to just say, oh, well, this is this story and it's all collected right here in this, portion of the website. And if you're looking to see what else it is in the wider scope, it's like, oh, well, this is volume 4 across of the whole Mugen story, right? So for example, Mugen Volume 1 is called Retro, right? It's a crossover story with Goku, Naruto, and those are the main crossover characters in it, right? And then like a couple of my original characters, right? And a Pikachu. There you go. I was like, I know there's one more. And then that's volume 1. Volume 2, which is a direct sequel to volume 1, is called Boys Don't Cry, and that involves Goku, Puff Daddy, Frank Ocean, Cookie Cat from Steven Universe. And it's the same story continuing. It's more of a direct sequel though, because it picks up right after the events of the first volume. You with me so far?
I gotcha.
Okay, so then volume 3 though is going to be called Quest to Infinity. And that involves different characters. That involves the characters from South Park, Dora the Explorer, and the Kids Next Door, right? Now it's still a part of this same story. And so it's branded as Mugen Volume 3, Quest to Infinity. So that's the story, Quest to Infinity, and then it's also number 3 in the overarching story.
I
Right?
get it. Okay.
Now, if you're like, so if a person goes, well, I'm really into the South Park characters, but I don't want to have to read volume 1 and 2 with Goku in them because I'm not into that, right? So that becomes the hurdle. And it's like, okay, well, it's real easy to just say in the website, right there on the comic you're reading, okay, here's what happened up till now. And then like that's just a quick summary. I feel like
Okay.
it's easier in digital format versus when you're just looking at it in a book, but I could be
No, yeah, for sure. So where are people mainly reading it? Are they reading it like as a web comic on your website, or are they reading it on Facebook?
So I'm doing a strategy where basically the first 3 chapters kind of took this from like Webtoon and Amazon. The first 3 chapters are completely free. And then what I do is, okay, so let me slow down. The first 3 chapters are completely free, and I post those on Facebook, right? Now, I'm also posting the comic on Patreon, on my Marcel Comics Patreon.
Okay.
So when it gets to the 4th chapter, half of the comic will say this panel is available on Patreon, right? So you
Yep.
giving half the comic, and then the other half of that chapter, there'll be a link to go to the Patreon to see it. So the first 3 chapters are free. Every chapter from then on in that story is by half of it is behind a paywall, basically.
So whenever you're given the first chapters for free, are the images like embedded into, I guess, like a Facebook post, or are you having them click a link to download like a PDF onto their computer?
No, so they're clicking a link that takes them to the Patreon where they can then
Gotcha.
sign up
Okay.
for membership, like and it's real chill. It's like $1 or $3 or $5. But yeah, $1 membership gets them access to the comic, and then the comic is hosted on Patreon, so they don't have to download anything. They're just
Okay, it all okay. Your main like portal is Patreon, and the Facebook is just the lead generator that's sending them to your Patreon, which is where the main people consume the story there.
yeah, it's basically the top part of the funnel, I guess you could say.
Okay, yeah,
And
yeah. Or what?
yeah,
Okay. Now, all
um,
right. Now it all makes sense. All right. I was like,
I'm sorry if
for
I'm
a while because I
moving.
remember. No, you this is
Yeah.
genius. So, like I said, sorry, I'm gonna dive into the weeds because, like, uh, I remember last time you were talking about it, and I remember you were talking about how the people that are on Facebook are into other fandoms, and you basically built up these fan pages for these fandoms, and then you were interjecting your own stories into these fandoms, and then leading people to read your own stories that I didn't realize till now that they actually embed the IP of these fandoms as well. So you're like combining your own original characters into these other universes that you've built these fan pages for. I just never quite gathered. I didn't realize like it was like Patreon that they were actually like reading it on. For some reason, I was thinking like people were reading your comic in the fan page or something like that. Because I guess I'm used to thinking like, well, if they're scrolling down, maybe they're just like continuing to scroll or something like that. But I'm also sort of an idiot. But so how now let's break down like how did you build these fan pages? And you don't even have to go into the details, but like how did you get started in this to where like you realized it was working? Like how did you go from 0 to 1 to build the first one up to 100,000 people?
For the record, I don't mind sharing any of this because I've tried to give out this free game in Facebook groups, and
No one cares?
on the platform that they're already on, I try to tell them, hey, like, you can get paid for your comic if you just post it and get into that program. And nobody really gave it any mind. No one paid it.
I'm really intrigued now. So I'm listening to every word.
And honestly, Max, now's the best time to be intrigued because they've said what before this was like a invite only program, right? You had to be just luckily chosen to be a part of this program. It was a beta. Now this year they say they're opening it up. They're opening it up to everybody. So it'll be
Okay.
just like YouTube. They'll have monetization requirements, and then you achieve those requirements, and now you can get paid for your content on Facebook. And again, it's there's the pay scale is not as clear, but what I can tell you is that content that is original gets paid way better than just say like recycled memes, right? So
Okay.
so like I said, it's a great time to be curious about it. But basically, again, how I wandered into creating a Facebook page. I think back in the day, I liked the idea of having a page for my Marcel Comics. It was I originally had a Marcel Comics page on MySpace. I think
Oh,
you're around
yeah.
my age, so you remember
Oh,
MySpace
yeah.
pretty well. So I had a Marcel Comics page on there, and then once everyone started moving over to Facebook, I made a Facebook page for my Marcel Comics page. And I was posting there on and off, figuring things out. Um, then I eventually got into Facebook ads, and Facebook ads is how I would recommend anybody else tries to grow a Facebook page. You can do it organically. Facebook has a pretty healthy organic algorithm, just based off of the wave of TikTok. Everything's a for you feed nowadays, so it's easy to be organic and viral. It's about retaining people, but yeah, a great way to go fast is to just simply run Facebook ads. I got into started messing around with those, discovered page like ads. Page like ads are basically just you running an ad for subscribers, like for followers. So someone sees a post, they just click the follow button. Now they're following the page. It's the easiest way to get followers onto your page.
Okay.
It used to be a lot easier back in the day, of course. It still can be pretty easy now, but it's just different. It's just different. But yeah, I just I was trying things. You just really had to try things out, stick with something for a while, and eventually, God came down from heaven and said, "Hey, so they've got this new thing called the Facebook bonus program, and we'll just pay you every time somebody likes your post." And that was like, wow. Like, I remember exactly where I was when I saw that, like laying in bed, and I just looked up and I'm like, really? Because the old myth, everyone says you can't get paid for clicks, you can't get paid for likes. Likes don't pay
Yeah.
bills. Here comes someone telling you, though, I'm going to pay you for likes. And I was one of the very early ones to get in on that. So I experienced some very high payouts for a while there. And it was just really great. And it put me in a position to where now I don't have to think, I can start thinking differently about how I'm approaching my comics. And it doesn't have to be, end result doesn't have to be a book. It can be digital, and it doesn't have to be pennies like how Webtoon can pay. I've never tried out Global Comics, so I don't know what their payouts are like.
I'm
But
not sure either. I
but
think
from
it's
what I,
up to you. I think you can set the rate um,
yeah,
if people pay for it. I'm not sure what it would be if you have it for free. I'm not. They probably do ad revenue. I'll
they they
find out.
have, they have some kind of ad share. Draw and Talk, Tyler Carpenter. He's
Yeah,
like
I
kind of
just
an
talked to him actually 2 days ago.
yeah, so he's like kind of an ambassador for Global Comics. Last time I checked, so he would probably know better.
I
But I
should have
think
asked him about it, and I didn't.
yeah. But I mean, you can message him. He's a pretty chill dude. I think they have this thing to where, like, say a person pays $10 for the subscription fee, right? And I think it goes to where if they read my comic 60% of the time and they read your comic 40% of the time while they were logged in, I would
Yeah,
get like $6 and you would get $4. I think
yeah, yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
I'm not entirely sure though, but from what I hear, no one's over there talking about like, oh, I'm getting paid off the comic,
Yeah,
right?
no, I don't think anybody is.
Yeah, so or Tapas or Webtoon or any of the other comic hosting sites. Meanwhile, I was getting like for a minute there, I was getting $4,000, $5,000 payouts from Facebook. It was
That's real paid. Yeah,
yeah, that's real life changing money. It's
yeah.
that's on top of your regular income. That's
Oh yeah,
so it was it's leveled out some more now, just because again they're trying to open it up more, make it more sustainable. Like I get it,
yeah,
making it more sustainable, but I still clock in about four figures, just about every month. There are with ad revenue, there's some slow months, some months are better, but it's just yeah, I got lucky enough to get into that program, figure things out, figure out what's going to be the best thing for me. And this is a constantly evolving process. Um,
yeah.
but figuring out what I think is going to be best for me and my creative process. And so right now, I'm about to really start pushing again on making my comics and making crossover comics, making some original comics that still exist in the world of the crossover universe. So it's all still interconnected. And yeah, I'm like, well, I don't have to do like a lot of people get caught up in the old ways of making comics, like that, it's like the world is progressing, technology is progressing. There's so many different ways to do things. There's so many different ways to live than the ways, stuff used to be. And I'm like, I feel like more people should challenge what it means to be a comic book. And I think that's an exciting thing when people do. And I say that to say that I'm like, I might just start doing something to where it's like a page a day and it releases a page a day and then it's collected into like a finally a chapter. And again, half of the chapter be behind a paywall. But it's like I get really excited when I make something and I don't like having to wait until the whole chapter is done to post it. So it's like, yeah, I think I am just gonna start putting out pages or panels as soon as it's ready and like find a way to leverage that off of the ad revenue while also still trying to build upon the membership. And yeah, I'm just looking for different ways to have fun creating and also profit from my creations. So yeah, I know I've been talking all around and I have no notes or any kind of preparation.
No, this is great,
So
man.
if
I'm
I'm if
learning a
I'm
lot.
if I'm not making sense, just tell me and I will definitely circle back and try again.
No, 100%. I wanted to note because you reminded me I was gonna make a video of like the research of the true numbers, but what you were saying was like, yeah, the old models, a lot of people need to kind of rethink that. Like I really am pretty sure that the models that people think are the mainstream today, when you actually look at the numbers of what people are consuming and how they're consuming it, especially on a worldwide scale, but I think even in the United States, web comics are number one. Like that's how people are reading. They're reading them on their phones, in their cars, on the train, on the bus, with their friends, at school. They're reading just like games they're playing, like just like addicting phone games, they're reading web comics. That's the main way people are consuming what you might call the broad like artwork of sequential art is that's how they're doing it. So, and then if you like level it down again, the next level is they're reading them as books, as like full length graphic novels, usually in a manga format, or if you want to put them together and just say like at a bookstore as a trade. And
Mm-hmm.
then the final, basically the niche, the small sector of this whole industry is what people think is the mainstream floppy comics in your comic shops. So it's like what people are thinking that like this is breaking in and like getting into the main world is really just like that's the old model that only a select group of people. It's the same as like people going to vinyl record shops. It's like no, people are listening to music on YouTube and Spotify. There's only a select group that are still going to places to get the vinyls, But I think that like if you really look at the numbers, that's kind of how it is, but we just don't see it in the same light. But when you look at just like the reality of the money in this industry, I've done a little bit of the numbers and it's like it's $1 billion a year of revenue go into what we call comics. And if you include graphic novels and manga in the bookstores, that's 2 billion. By comparison, Warhammer 40K just the games is equal to that. Like it's and some people don't even know what that is. Like so well, Warhammer is not as big as the whole industry, but it trumps just what we might call independent comics or like anything other than Marvel and DC. And if you layer up, like craft beer companies are more than $2 billion a year. Like just almost anything that you can think of as sort of like a side hobby or just like some kind of like who knows industry makes more than the what we might call the comic book industry. So it's like it's not that big in the grand scheme and the market you're going after is even smaller. And then you, as a creator in that small market, is virtually unknown to the rest of the world. You're only known to this small niche. So we do need to rethink, and it's like what you're doing and doing web comics and doing revenue on Facebook, people might think of that as just like the opposite of what's true, where they're like, that's just some weird side thing that guy's doing. Where in reality, it's like, no, you're capturing the large market of what people are doing.
It's about being where the people are. I think if you follow like the just thinking about it right now, um, books like comic books, floppies made sense back in the era of the newsstand because everybody was at the newsstand. The newsstand was the feed. So
Yeah.
it's like it made sense to be there. Now the feed is on social media. It's on Facebook, it's on Twitter, it's on YouTube. That is where you want to be. And I think a lot of creators get caught up in the trap of YouTube and Twitter. And Twitter has recently sort of mimicked Facebook's content monetization thing, but it's nowhere as polished.
No, yeah, it's
And
too early, and
yeah,
it's just like,
it's
yeah.
really early, and it's basically only profiting the elite people on there. And from what I know about Twitter, I've only tinkered with it a little bit, but it's not as easy to grow a Twitter page as it is, say, a Facebook page. So yeah,
No, yeah. From what
Facebook.
I've heard,
Go ahead.
TikTok is sort of the easiest to like grow and
Yeah.
scale. Below that is sort of Facebook and YouTube, and Twitter's like not even on the map. Like even people that are already big other places struggle to make it grow an
Yeah,
audience on
I
Twitter.
think it's right on par with Instagram. Instagram can be a bit tough to develop an audience from what I hear as well. But what was I gonna say? Another thing to keep in mind is like talking about being where the people are. As big as Webtoon is, Facebook is gets way more traffic,
Hmm.
way more traffic. And if you and again like the advantage just comparing for people who are like maybe like, well, I prefer Webtoon to post my digital comics or global comics. My Facebook dwarfs all of their traffic, and the Facebook, for better or for worse, has infinite more data on all of its users and can help get your stuff in front of the right people. So it's just about being where the people are. It's one of the simplest forms, I mean, simplest aspects of the game. And I think when you solve for that of just putting yourself in the room of where your audience is, I think a lot of everything else becomes way easier.
No, yeah, for sure. That's the argument I always make all the time, was where if you can take the approach like you're doing, where you do one thing that works and it captures something that's at such a high scale, like over 100,000 people, everything else is not necessarily easy, but it's just like it changes the dynamics so much when you have a funnel that big that you're dwindling it down to target towards whatever you're trying to do, as opposed to trying to, capture 100 people, um, literally in a live event, which is what most of us are trying to do. We're trying to get most of our revenue in a place, and I don't know if you watch Coffee Comics, but or I think he goes by Musy Sensei. He
Yeah.
was telling me he was like, it's just literally like fishing in a pond, or like just like trying to like sell fish at a fish market. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of almost the slowest way to do things whenever it's just kind of the weirdest way to sell comic books if you can reach capture a huge audience, especially like the entire world that's on the internet. Uh,
And I think it might not even be the best way of doing that. From what I hear from like Gary Vee, every now and again I dip in and out of his content. I forget what the name of that app was, but it's a there's a social media app where it's basically like a home shopping network where they just do live selling the whole time.
Whatnot is similar to
Whatnot.
that.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go. So I'm like, I think that platform right now is way better for like being a creator. People popping in while you're just the whole time you're telling them about your comic and selling them on them on your comic. I
Hmm.
think that would be a better platform for people popping in on live streams versus randomly finding your YouTube channel where you're going live. I think that's the superior. I'm just saying I think because I haven't.
You're 100% right. The only reason it doesn't, or like the reason it works for the people in this space, is it's perfect for the people that are just at a scale of 1 to 1,000. If your audience is basically, um, if you're printing less than 1,000 books, and your goal is just to basically sell those 1,000 books throughout a year, the model of basically just going on tour to 6 different Comic Cons, selling 10, 20 at a time, and then meanwhile basically going through the other traditional steps of like getting them into stores, doing a Kickstarter campaign, uh, that works because you can sort of just consistently sell to about between, 100, 200, up to about 1,000 people.
Mhm.
And no one ever expects more than that because we're used to just being in this niche market. But to break out beyond that, it's almost impossible without becoming just a breakout hit success as a creator to where you're like just reach celebrity status. And I was actually just talking to Tyler Carpenter about this, is like through the traditional model to where you're making physical books and you're a self-published creator or even a small press published creator, or really even a mainstream published creator, there's sort of like we all go through the same path where you're basically releasing a series, it's going through comic shops, you might also sell it on your publisher website or your own website, and you're making money there. You might be like me where you're creating YouTube and you're getting leads that way. And then ultimately, like you use the shows, and I think Gary Vee even talks about this, is then you're moving backwards to where to scale up beyond that is like the shows are where you're sort of networking, and it's almost like you're using that as like its own marketing platform, but it also has its own sort of legitimacy to where if you are sort of a hit, you can make a lot through conventions.
Mhm.
But it's just like anything else to where it does none of it matters if you're not a hit. If you don't have some, it's just like I guess online to where you can create an image and if it's not getting likes, it doesn't matter. You have to learn how to make likes. What did you do to get more likes on your images?
So it's just about paying attention to what the audience responds to, what they like. For my Dragon Ball page, there's definitely a lot of anime gooners out there. So I'm just a fan of Dragon Ball in general. So like a regular cool Dragon Ball picture, I'm like, wow, so this is gonna get a lot of likes, right? And it doesn't get as many likes as a really curvaceous picture of Bulma. So it's the basically the same rules with those Kickstarter covers. Um,
Yeah.
Sex sells is one of the oldest, rules in the game. But every now and again, a regular picture will take off. People just, it's about just making stuff or finding stuff. If you're leveraging content, curating content, as they could say, um, seeing what the audience responds to, and mixing that in with just what excites you, and just flowing through that. It helps to be in a niche because you're focused on like, well, it has to be something within this realm, and I'll just pick something that I like or something that's similar to something that took off before.
Okay.
Just keep it simple like that. Something that I wanted to hop on real quick that you were talking about when you were talking about conventions. Um,
Hmm.
like, quick question: do you feel conventions, like convention appearances, still make sense in 2025?
They do and they don't, and I'll explain because I talk about it. And like what I tell people is there is no point in going to an expensive convention because you have to pay to go to these things.
Right.
Unless you have a reason to be there in the sense that you've been invited, you get a free pass because you have your publisher is there, or you're invited to be a panelist or something like that. Or if you know for a fact that you're going to sell out of whatever you're bringing there because you have evidence going to other conventions that you have hit content. Because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, you will lose money, and you can do it for the experience, and you can use it to basically you can use it for credibility. So like getting your, you do sort of get some kind of, what's they call it? Not cool points, but whatever. Like you get some kind of credibility by association when you have an art booth that's next to someone that's a very well-known name in the space, because that's who goes to these convention and that's who can profit from them, is people that are essentially the top of the top names of this industry. So if you do get invited and you do are able to get a table, it's probably worth it because you were invited and you got a table, or you were grandfathered in because you're with a publisher that has a table or something like that. If that's the case, go, because you will establish more credibility and you'll find a way to network and basically partner with other people that can basically level you up. It's sort of like getting invited to a celebrity party even though your movie sucks, or it might be just super not professional or whatever like that. But it's like you're invited to a premiere, go to it. If you're
Mm-hmm.
not invited to it, don't waste your money trying to like get a table or go there and try to like sell like out of your backpack or something like that, because it's hard to do that and it's basically not allowed. On the when you go to the mid-scale conventions, so this is like in my area, for example, sort of St. Louis and Chicago, you can literally go to a convention every, at least on average every week. There's some that like certain months like May and October where there's multiple conventions per month. But if you combine horror convention, comic convention, anime convention, or like sci-fi and fantasy or whatever's in your genre, there's something for you to go to. And as long as the cost for a table is like $200 or less and you have a lot of content,
Mm-hmm.
one of the best ways to basically build leads for your future books is at conventions, because you can sort of use that as like uh, literally a physical interaction. People remember you more
Mm-hmm.
that way, and they can almost be a longer, more loyal fan than they would by just somebody that like sees you online. So in that sense, if you go to a convention that's less than $200 and gets more than 2,000 people at the convention, it's a possibility that if you have quality products, especially if you're an artist and not a writer like I am, if you have great art and a lot of it, you can just sling prints to those 2,000 people. If you capture their eyes, and they'll come to your table, and then it's truly profitable to where I have people that I'm like tabling next to that they are just, every convention they go to, they, you're spending 200 and they're making 2 grand to 5 grand, or some of the bigger ones, they're selling 10,000 plus per convention. Now you average that out and you do 12 to 24 conventions per year. That's actually a solid business model. Like you're actually making six figures just touring, at least in revenue. You have to bear in mind that you're paying for your products as well. So if you kind of factor that in, you're probably spending 30 to 50K, and you, even if you're making 100, it's averaging out to like 50. But that's not, that's, once again, you're only doing that 12 times a year. You can have a day job on top of that. And like you're talking about, 4 or 5K checks on top of your monthly revenue is like life-changing money. So
Mm-hmm.
like for those people that have that model solidified, just like you have your Facebook model solidified, it's actually genius. But if you're not and you don't really know what you're doing, you'll just end up spending money on conventions, not know how to sell people, not have quality products, um, and not really establish credibility or be able to get leads. You have to do a lot of legwork in order to make that a functioning business, to where just like you, it's a lot of trial and error. Um, but it works for some people if you do it right. And I call it like the going on tour portion of your, if you consider your this whole comic career, and I don't want to talk too much, but it's basically like if you imagine 3 parts, to where it's like your main job is creating the work. That's 1/3. The other third is essentially capturing leads, which whether that's creating content on Facebook or like I do YouTube channels, or whatever it is. And then the final third is like actually going on tour or actually like selling your physical products where it's an event. I also make movies, and the equivalent to that is like actually throwing a premiere or hosting your movie at a theater, in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that you might be getting most of your views from a streaming platform like Amazon Prime, like most of us in indie comics, I mean indie film. But whenever if you can throw a premiere event where you can like sort of upsell that it's an event and there's a premiere and there's a Q&A and you're selling those for $40 a ticket instead of trying to sell it for free and get ad revenue or sell it for $10 on Amazon or something like that. You then turn it into like you're just like getting this event where you get 300 people to each of them pay a certain level price, or you level them up to where it's like if you want to go to the after party, it's another $50. And now you're looking at once again just like conventions to where this event is actually bringing you in, you know, four figures, and just that one day like it makes it worth it if you're only doing it once a month or even once a quarter.
Mhm. Yeah, so I was asking that just because for me personally, it's I was kind of one of those guys where it just seemed like conventions didn't make sense for.
It
It's like,
wouldn't make sense in your world, I don't think. You
yeah,
need a lot of content. It works, it's really best for artists.
yeah. I mean,
Because
I draw. I'm not really into the idea of creating like prints,
yeah,
like again, all that ancillary merchandise. I really just like selling comics.
yeah,
And
yeah.
if you've been to a convention, you know people who sell comics in Artist Alley are kind of rare. Like they're the small it's the minority of Artist Alley. Most people are selling knickknacks, stickers, prints, um,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
for sure.
little collectible little plushies or whatever like that.
Hmm.
And then you come across that the small percentage of people who are selling their indie comics, and it's just usually they're just like I want to say how to describe this. Most of the times I see a person with an indie comic in Artist Alley, they're usually either very like, hey, like this is my comic and stuff like that, or they're very much like, yeah, it's right there on the table.
Yeah, yeah.
No, and I think a lot of creators just don't have the personality for it. But for me, it was just about how much revenue I was generating and or losing going to a convention. And it's like, well, I would need like a bunch of books to go up there, and then like I had to sell my ass off for it to make sense, and then I
Yeah.
would have to do that a lot. And I'm like, the amount of work versus the amount of reward is like very low, and then the time being spent doing all of that also seemed like way too much. So for and
Yeah, you're 100% right. Like it that's my point is like if you're not doing it in a certain method, it is a waste of time and you'll burn yourself out and never make any money. But even in your world, if you do sort of balance the three and you see it as let's just say you as a brand, Marcel the Loser is like you are your main like hub is sort of, let's just say, Patreon. You're gathering leads through Facebook. Um, and then if you actually did have, even if you weren't selling comics, but you had some kind of other portion of your brand that you were selling in some way, to where it would make sense not even to get a booth, but to use the events to either highlight yourself to the other channels that you're going to where the conventions, you're just using that as a lead generator, to where you literally just creating postcards, you're getting invited as a panelist or something, and just speaking, telling your giving your truths about how like how you make comics, and just like giving a panel on how you're doing this independent stuff. And if you did have a booth, you could just like have artwork, but like it's just used as like one little portion of your greater business, and not then you wouldn't see it as like trying to make money off of that one event. It's more like I'm going to use this to hopefully build a few more leads to my other thing, like my main Patreon. But it's also, once again, it's kind of like it still wouldn't make full sense for you if your main thing is like unless you had some other form of I guess, end product that was related to you showing people how to do this, like a course or a book on how to make comics or something like that. I don't know the answer, but like it could make work in it if you had this as like a full scale business all the time, to
Hmm.
where you were expecting to go to these places to capture the people that are into uh Goku, and you know, like, and to where you can use them and be like, you know, I have a Facebook page that focus on this, and I write these stories that are cross references and whatever. And you wouldn't even need to get a booth. You could be the guy that just goes there with a backpack full of your own like self printed, essentially like flyers and postcards, and just walk around and give them to people with just links to your Patreon. If
I've
you
still
print a
kind of done
thousand
that.
up to 2,000 of them, you might get 20 people that'll actually click the links, but it might be worth it to you if you were already going to go to that event anyway. And if you're going to something really awesome like New York Comic Con, where there's literally 100,000 people there, you could just like spend a whole day just kicking it. And especially if you can find some kind of like panelist spot or something like that, it'll be well worth it for you. Like I said, once again, the key is like you need to be invited or have some kind of guaranteed like uh you know that you're not there to make money but just generate leads.
Yeah, and so basically that's what I started doing towards the end of my Comic Con career. I wouldn't go to conventions to sell my books for money. I'd go there to sell them for Patreon memberships. So
Yeah.
I'd offer them this comic. I say, usually this comic costs $5, $10. I'll give it to you for free. All you gotta do is join my $1 membership on Patreon. And like a lot of people would do that. And eventually I started just pulling up to conventions, not even paying for a table. Usually at all these conventions, these big conventions, there's a couple empty tables for artists who maybe double booked or just couldn't make it that weekend. And I just find one of those tables, set up stuff from my backpack, and then just be like, hey, yeah, I'm giving out free books if you join my membership. You know, you get access to like hundreds of comics on there, and you can also get this whole free book. I'll autograph it for you. It's only $1 to sign up. And like I was doing that for a while, but then what made me stop going was because for as many people as I could get at the convention, I could get I could get them so much faster, or at least let's say with very much less effort, just doing it online, figuring
You
out the right system for
you've scaled out of this model. Like you've already like just gone past it to where it's just not worth it. I know, I mean, most of the artists I work with that are like really pro, they've scaled out of the model. Like
Mm,
you said, it's they don't even need to go to conventions. They, you know, once you're past 1,000 like just hardcore loyal fans, especially if you're past 10,000 loyal fans, like if you were to have 10,000 fans in your Patreon, like you see like with celebrities like comedians and stuff like that, it's over. You've scaled
mm,
out. The whole model that everyone else is going through is just so that they can sort of keep their business at break even, you know, and keep the hobby functioning. They're not trying to do all the work that you're doing, or not trying to do the work. You did the work and you succeeded. Like you've already scaled out of it to where conventions, what's the point of getting another 10 leads when you can get those in a day on Facebook, you know?
right. So yeah, it's just I still do like doing appearances though. Like Free Comic Book Day is coming up next weekend, and I'm currently emailing one of my local stores to show up there. Mark Bagley is apparently going to be at that store, so that'll be cool. But just because I'm a nerd for comic books and stuff, it'd be fun just to go up there, and I'll probably have some free versions of my books to give away. But again, I'll be doing the same thing. Like, well, this book usually costs $20 on Amazon, but if you sign up for my $1 membership, you can get it right now.
You should just be the guy that goes to like Tokyo and just puts your art on skateboards. And you know, like you just do it for fun because you're
Yeah,
just at that level to where you just show up, and then if people don't know who you are, you're there just to once again like establish credibility or and kick it at the same time.
yeah.
It's not really even like trying to generate leads. It's just trying to have fun. And since you already might as well, just promote your stuff. Well,
Right.
thanks a lot, man. I've learned a lot. I'll definitely have you on again, and I'm actually gonna subscribe to your Patreon and stuff like that.
You don't have to, Max. It's okay if you don't. If
I want to see
you
it.
don't have.
I want to see like what is it that you're doing.
Okay,
Um,
so I mean, because I'm like, I'll straight up, I have no problem just telling you what I'm doing if you're really curious. Again, it's a constantly evolving strategy. What works for one brand doesn't usually always work for the other. Different fandoms respond in different ways, different habits, yada 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 yada. So it's like I never want to feel like I'm pressuring people that I'm familiar with, like, oh yeah, you should check out my Patreon, man. It's only $1. Like, come on, sign up. It's just $1. Like, I don't want to
yeah.
go through that. So it's like you don't have to if you really want to. Of course, go ahead. But I'm happy to share any information that you may want.
Thanks, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll definitely reach out and try to get once yeah, right now I'm just like promoting my own Kickstarter, which is yeah, I'll plug that my own
yeah.
stuff.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
my
say yeah.
Kickstarter is
So
live.
tell me about your comic.
So I guess the sort of the key thing about this is it's the first book that I'm crowdfunding. Everything else I've done was through publishers through the normal comic shop route. And
Mm-hmm.
with the Diamond bankruptcy, it like really opened my eyes because suddenly you get, it's a long game. You spend years creating a comic, it's finally out there, and then you expect to get it's like investing. If you invest a lot of money into something, you can wait 2 to 3 years to hopefully get a lot of money back, at least what you put into it. Well, all of a sudden when Diamond went bankrupt, all of that revenue is not coming to me. So it's like a total 100% loss. Now,
Damn.
if I had all that stuff like self-published, it wouldn't be a 100% loss because I would at least be able to capture my own fans. So I was like already on the fence about like wanting to try to do self like crowdfunding in the first place and try that model because my key thing is physical books.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the first one that I'm crowdfunding. It's another like gothic horror romance that I wrote with my writing partner Aaron Crow. My previous books were done with an artist named Gabriel Umazark from Brazil. This new one, it's a female manga artist named Bye Bye Unimund, and this is her first sequential art book that she's ever done. And it's also like I'm starting my own small press publisher because if this campaign works out, I'm actually going to publish not just my own stuff, but other people's material in the Tankobon manga size format. It still reads left to right in English, but in black and what's up?
I'm gonna say I'm sorry to cut you off. There's something I actually want to show you because I forgot that you said you are doing small press, and there was something that I might wanted to float by you. If you could give me like 2 minutes to go grab it.
Go for it.
All right, sorry. Okay, so since you're into more so producing physical books, I wanted to see what you thought of this idea that I did back in, I don't know how long ago this was. It might have been like 2014, 2015, something like that. I basically made an American Shonen Jump.
Whoa.
It's called Def Jump. And it was this like book full of a bunch of web comics that are basically already online for free. I just put them all in a book together and got Kablam to print it and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was giving them out for free in December. Like I did them weekly. I had like multiple books, and I was putting them out for free just to see if people would respond to them. Like, would people be excited about them? And people like they were saying like the people at the store they were coming in. People were taking them, come in the next week looking for them. So
Yeah.
it's like I think because you're saying you're looking into publishing other people, As much as people say physical print is dying, for the people who are still into physical print, I think there's very much a demand for something like this.
Oh,
And
there definitely is a demand for sure. It's just as you know and have learned is even though there's a demand, and that's kind of the whole point of my doing the small press the way I'm doing is the even the business model for the mid to mid-level publishers and small press publishers, it's usually a 1 to 2 man team and then
mm-hmm.
other people working for free round the clock to make less money than virtually any other industry that's entry level positions, whether you're cooking food at a restaurant or whatever. And so it's like a lot of work, and you're basically making very little revenue or like actual profit, if anything at all. So
Right.
because it's just such thin margins with comics, like you were giving those out for free, it's like if you had something bigger to where you're leading people to a bigger IP, movies, video games, or whatever, and the comics or the Shonen Jump style thing is leading them to something bigger, selling trading cards with characters or whatever, then it works. And you'll see that the very functioning high level publishers in this space are really just the starting point to lead people to their bigger products, whether it's theme parks or whatever. Um, or movies, TV shows, whatever it is, the comics are just like the starting point to jump people off, or it's like gone backwards to where it's just the ancillary product for what people already consumed on TV, and like that's their business model. And everybody that's smaller, it's even at a mid level, it's like a hobby product. Even the small press publishers are basically a second job for people that have a different job, and then they're just spending all their time trying to make these companies work. So I would be doing the same thing, and it's hard to justify that time. And so that's why I'm basically doing it the manga angle is because I you can save a little bit on printing costs by doing them smaller and
Mm-hmm.
doing it in black and white. And but if and then if I can, and since I'm at such a small scale, you can't sell them at that like low of a cost, but it'll at least make sense to the consumer. They'll be willing to buy a physical product for $5 or $10 as opposed to where it with a normal traditional like graphic novel, you would need to sell it for 30 in order for you to actually profit from it because you're spending $10 to print it because you're only printing 100 200 copies and trying to sell them online or at conventions and things like that,
Right.
or like Kickstarter campaigns. So I need to do something to where it's like I can safely print 500 to 1,000 of them and just easily sell them, and then just do that multiple times a year to where I'm at least like doing some kind of profit with not that much work. But it's very hard to like find that balance. And I'm not even sure if I'll be able to do it. But the market's there, especially like with what you were doing. I want to ultimately try that. But the amount of effort that takes is I have to design and lay it out. I have to get all these creators. I'm doing it to make it to where the comic shops find it and they get people coming all the time. You have to do it at least monthly, if not weekly. It's much
Mm-hmm.
like creating content. It's hard to create content digitally and just
Yeah.
post like YouTube videos once a week. Now, if I'm trying to print a physical product, I used to be in print publishing. That's why I know how to do a lot of this. It takes a whole team, and you're not making much out of it unless you're at such a scale to where you're printing 12,000 copies of this kind of stuff. So it's like, it's once again, it's like if I had such a huge audience to where I'm just sort of narrowing it down and the like publishing is like just the kind of the end form to where people can get products for it. Something
Mm-hmm.
like A24 to where their main products are their movies, but they also make a killing just selling t-shirts and zines and things like that. If I had like a main channel like you were doing where I'm getting huge swaths of people and just narrowing out the 100,000 people that watch all my stuff and then the 1,000 that want to get stuff, once again, it's like you need 1,000 loyal fans to really be able to do anything and relax. If you have anything less than that, it's more work than you really get out of it on the print media scale. You need to balance all these three things of having basically the content, touring, and just the main work. But
Yeah.
I'm talking too much. Well, we're over an hour. My family's wanting to eat, so I'll let you go. But thanks a lot for doing this, man. I will probably have it go live Tuesday next week.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Always down to talk comics and comic business. I don't have a lot of people to talk about it with, so it's
Well,
always
I'm there
fun
for you
to
on the
bounce
other end.
ideas. Yeah. Well, all right, man. You have a good night, and see you next time. All right.
Thanks, you too. Take it easy.